Benin City in the evening was calm. The sky was painted with soft orange and purple colors as the sun went down. The air smelled of burning firewood and strong herbs. People were finishing their day, cooking meals or getting ready to rest. In a small two-room flat, Mama Elu was getting ready for bed. The flat was not big, but it was clean. There was a small bed with a tin mattress, a small table, and a worn-out chair. The windows were open, letting the evening breeze come in. The air smelled of menthol balm, a smell from the medicine her mother always used. There was also the smell of dried bitter leaf, a plant Mama Elu used to make herbal tea. Amaka sat quietly on the chair. She was tired from work but could not rest easily. Her mind was busy with thoughts about her mother, her job, and the life waiting outside the flat. Mama Elu was in the other room. She was sitting near a small table full of bottles and herbs. She was mixing a new herbal medicine. Mama Elu was a strong woman. She had been a nurse for many years. Now she used her knowledge of herbs to help people. Her eyes were dark and sharp. She looked serious all the time, especially when she looked at Amaka. When Mama Elu spoke, her voice was calm but firm. A woman must never kneel to a man, she said many times. If he did not die for you, don't die for him. Amaka listened and nodded. She knew her mother meant well, but sometimes it felt like she was being trapped. Amaka loved her mother but also felt small under her strong voice. It was like living in a garden full of flowers and sharp thorns. She wanted to grow and be free, but the thorns stopped her. Every morning, Amaka woke up early and went to work. She worked at a small private clinic. Her job was to sit at the front desk, answer phone calls, and help patients when they came. Amaka was kind and polite to everyone. She smiled, but it was not a big smile. It was a small, careful smile. She did not want to show too much. She liked helping people, but some days she felt tired and alone. After work, she went straight home to her small flat. At night, Amaka and Mama Elu sat together in the flat. Sometimes they talked, but often they sat quietly. The quiet felt heavy, like a thick cloth wrapped around Amaka's heart. Mama Elu watched Amaka closely. She wanted to protect her daughter, but her way of love was strong and strict. One night, Mama Elu said again, Amaka, a woman must be strong. You cannot give your heart to a man who does not fight for you. Amaka nodded, but inside her, a small part of her dreamed of something different. One day, Amaka went to a naming ceremony for a baby. It was a happy event with music, food, and many people. There, Amaka met David. He was quiet and soft-spoken. He smiled slowly, like he was thinking carefully about everything. David's clothes were clean and neat. He looked calm and kind. Amaka laughed at a joke someone told. It was a real laugh, a sound that came from her heart. David saw her laugh and smiled inside. He watched her closely, like she was something very special. They talked a little that day. Amaka liked how David listened. He did not try to be loud or funny, he was just calm and patient. For 6 months, Amaka and David met often. They talked on the phone and met at small places. David was careful with his words, but Amaka liked him more every day. One day, David came to Mama Elu's house. He knocked on the door and held a bottle of red wine. His eyes were humble but steady. Mama Elu opened the door and looked at David. Her eyes were sharp like a lion's. You say you work with numbers, ABI, she asked. Numbers do not build houses. Do you have land? David said, Not yet, Ma, but I have been saving money. Mama Elu did not smile. She looked serious. That night, the sky was dark and loud. Thunder growled like a big animal. Mama Elu's voice was strong and clear. That boy is too neat. Men like that are either poor or hiding demons. You better open your eyes, Amaka. Amaka wanted to believe her mother. But she had already closed her eyes to the warning. She only wanted to see David's kindness and smile. She dreamed of a future with David, a future full of love and hope. Amaka and David got married quietly. It was a small ceremony at the registry office. No big party. Just papers, a few witnesses, and the soft sound of their vows. Afterward, they shared meat pies and cold drinks with a few friends. The small flat was filled with soft laughter and shy smiles. Amaka was happy but nervous. She had left her mother's house for the first time, but she felt the weight of her mother's eyes still watching her, even from far away. That night, she lay under the mosquito net. David held her hand gently. "We will build a good life," he said softly. Amaka wanted to believe him. The small flat was theirs now. It was simple, a bed, a small table, a tiny kitchen corner. Amaka worked at the clinic during the day, and David did his job with numbers. But even in their new home, Amaka could not forget her mother's words. Every week, she returned to Mama Elu's house. She carried gifts, fruits like oranges and bananas, colorful wrappers for clothes, and sometimes money. These were her way to say, "I am still your daughter." Mama Elu did not take the gifts lightly. She held them up, turned them over, and inspected each carefully. "So, instead of building your future, he sends you oranges," she said one afternoon, her voice full of doubt. "Is this the market you want to trade in?" David came to meet Mama Elu a few times. He smiled politely but said very little. He seemed to know that Mama Elu was not easily pleased. Amaka watched the quiet battle between her mother and her husband. She wanted peace, but the tension was thick in the small rooms they shared. One Friday evening, the doorbell rang. Amaka opened the door to see her mother standing with a big gun Moscow bag. Her feet were swollen and tired from the long journey. "I just want to rest my bones small," Mama Elu said as if she was entering a kingdom to rule. David smiled politely and helped carry the bag inside. Amaka's heart pounded. She knew this visit would change everything. Mama Elu settled into their small home like a queen taking her throne. In the next 2 days, Mama Elu started to change their house. She moved things around. When she saw 2 pillows on the bed, she frowned. 2 pillows. Even prisoners get better sleeping conditions. David bought more pillows to keep peace, but Mama Elu was not satisfied. She moved the chairs and cleaned the corners with sharp eyes. Amaka felt like she was watching a storm slowly grow in their home. Mama Elu watched every meal David made or bought. She said the yam he cooked was too soft. She said the yam flour was not the right kind. She criticized the plantain he bought. She complained the mosquito coils were weak and not enough. David tried buying citronella candles, but Mama Elu still whispered her complaints like poison in the air. "You are becoming a house girl," she said one quiet evening. "Soon, he will cheat on you." Men always cheat. Amaka wanted to argue, but the words caught in her throat. At night, Amaka lay awake, staring at the white ceiling. David came close and kissed her shoulder gently. "It's okay," he whispered. But Amaka's heart was heavy. She felt like a battlefield with nuclear sights. She was caught between 2 words, love for David and loyalty to her mother. She wanted freedom and peace, but fear held her tight, like chains made of silence and duty. She did not know if she was fighting for herself or just trying to keep everyone happy. Days passed, and the distance between Amaka and David grew quietly. David became quieter too. He smiled less, and sometimes, he left the house for long hours without explanation. Amaka missed the man who once made her laugh. She tried to call him, but he often did not answer. One afternoon, Amaka caught him staring out the window with sad eyes. She wanted to ask what was wrong but felt too scared. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. "Men like that are either poor or hiding demons." Amaka didn't know what to believe anymore. One slow evening, after the small dinner they shared in their little flat, Amaka sat quietly beside David. The sound of the radio played softly in the background, but Amaka's mind was loud with thoughts. She wanted to say something important, something that made her heart beat fast with fear and hope. "I want to go to Ochi to see your mother," she said softly. David looked surprised. His eyes lit up for a moment, then grew serious. "That will be good," he said. "She will be happy to see you." But Amaka felt a small knot in her stomach. She knew this visit might not be easy. Later that night, Amaka told her mother about the visit. Mama Elu's face changed immediately. Her eyes grew sharp and cold, like a snake ready to strike. "So, you want to go and wash plates in another woman's house and forget your own mother," she said, her voice low but full of warning. Amaka felt the words cut deep. "Don't go and bring back bad luck from strange soil," Mama Elu warned, her voice filled with fear and anger. Amaka wanted to explain, but the words got stuck in her throat. She looked down and said nothing. A few days later, David and Amaka sat quietly in the small living room. David looked at her with tired eyes. "Why does your mother hate me so much?" he asked softly. Amaka felt the question like a stone in her chest. She looked away and whispered, "She just cares too much." But the word care did not feel warm. It felt cold, like a chain tightening around her wrist. As days turned to weeks, things changed between Amaka and David. David stopped making jokes. His smile became rare and tired. Amaka stopped texting him back quickly. Sometimes she did not reply at all. She started staying out late. Sometimes she went to a friend's house. Sometimes she just walked in the night air, hoping to find some peace. The quiet between them grew heavy, louder than any fight or angry word could be. She did not want to fight with David, but she did not want to be near him either. David noticed Amaka's growing distance. One afternoon, he waited for her to come home. When she entered the door, her face was tired and her eyes were empty. She sat down quietly and started stirring soup in the small pot on the stove. David watched her, but she did not look at him. He wished he could reach her, but there was a wall between them now, invisible but strong. Suddenly, Amaka's phone buzzed loudly on the small table. David's eyes went to the screen. The message shone bright in the quiet room. "You deserve better. A woman like you shouldn't be wasting her beauty." David did not ask who sent the message. He said nothing. He just stood there, at the doorway, watching Amaka. She kept stirring the soup slowly, as if it held everything, their love, their future, or maybe the end of it. The silence in the room grew heavier. David felt like a stranger in his own home. Amaka's heart was full of fear and sadness. She thought about her mother's warnings, David's tired eyes, and the message on her phone. She felt trapped between two worlds, one where love was supposed to be, and one where control rode like a shadow. Her whispers of hope were lost in the wind. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon. The sun was low, painting the sky orange, but the air inside their small flat felt heavy, thick with worry. David came in slowly, his shoulders slumped. His eyes were red, tired, like he had been crying in secret. Amaka saw him standing in the doorway, staring at the floor. She waited for him to speak. Finally, his voice came out soft, almost like a broken whisper. "They laid me off," he said. "Downsizing. They said there's no more work for me." He looked up at her, but there was no hope in his eyes, only pain. Amaka's heart clenched. She wanted to say something comforting, to hold him and tell him it would be okay. But the words got stuck in her throat. She only nodded quietly, her lips pressed tight. No hug came. "No, it's going to be all right." Just silence. A silence so loud it filled every corner of the room. That evening, Mama Elu came to visit. Her footsteps were heavy and certain, echoing down the small hallway. Amaka's stomach twisted with nerves. Mama Elu had always been strong, fierce like a lioness protecting her cub. Tonight, she seemed ready to roar. She entered the room and clapped her hands sharply, breaking the quiet like thunder crashing in the sky. "I told you," she said, her voice sharp and cold. "Even job reject am. A man money runs from is not your destiny." Her words felt like punches, hitting Amaka's heart again and again. Amaka looked down at her hands, unable to meet her mother's fierce eyes. Mama Elu shook her head and sighed. "Why you go marry this kind man? You supposed to marry man wey fit carry you go." Amaka said nothing. The silence stretched between them like a thick rope, pulling tight. That night, the house was filled with tension. David and Mama Elu argued. Voices raised, sharp words flying like knives. Amaka stood in the middle, caught like a leaf in a storm. David's patience finally broke. Amaka, it's me or her, he shouted, his voice full of hurt and anger. Mama Elu stepped in quickly, her voice loud and commanding. You will not raise your voice at my daughter. David looked defeated. His shoulders dropped. He whispered, barely able to speak. Amaka, I love you. But I cannot fight poverty, and your mother. Amaka's heart broke in two. But she said nothing. Her mouth closed tight, like a door slammed shut. The next morning, the flat felt empty. David was gone. No goodbye. No explanation. Only a note left on the door, fluttering in the morning breeze. Amaka picked it up with trembling hands and read. I still love you. But I can't fight poverty and your mother. I pray you see what we lost before it's too late. Tears burned behind Amaka's eyes. But she did not cry. She folded the note carefully and placed it on the table. She felt hollow, like a shell with nothing inside. Days turned into weeks. Amaka's world grew colder and quieter. No phone calls. No messages. Just silence. Then one day, official papers arrived. Divorce papers. Amaka stared at them, numb. She held the papers in her hands like they weighed 1,000 pounds. Her dreams, hopes, and love all wrapped in those cold documents. She sat down slowly, the weight of everything crushing her. Her eyes were dry. Her heart was heavy. And in that quiet room, something inside her began to die, the small seed of hope she once held close, now broken and lost. Sometimes, the loudest voices aren't always right, just familiar. If Amaka had listened to her heart instead of her mother's fears, maybe love would have found room to grow. Let this be your reminder. Not every advice is wisdom. And not every parent knows where your happiness lives. Choose your battles, especially the ones between love and loyalty. Because silence, once it settles, is hard to chase away. If you enjoyed this story, like, comment and subscribe for more.